Hi, Father Ian Van Heusen here. We're here with Rob Agnelli. So we're going to be talking about love. What was the phrase again? The first part.
It was ardent love, right?
Ardent love charity. Of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So clearly, Rob, we've talked about this before. Clearly, this is like a Beatles song. All we need is
that's
love.
what I was thinking. Clearly,
the Beatles got it right. I don't know why we couldn't figure it out up until the 1960s, but all we need is love, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, I think, Beatles aside, because they're always right. I think, again, like if you grab a hold of the adjective, right? Yeah. Ardent love. Like, what does ardent love look like? Mm-hmm. And I'm thinking about I think it's in the Purgatorio, Dante's Purgatorio, where the slothful, like they always have that Marian, I don't know if you ever read the Purgatorio, but they always have these Marian images of ways that people are purified. So basically, the message is be like Mary and.
Oh, really? Yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So the Marian image on for the slothful is, because they're slow, to give love, right? That's what the vice of sloth is.
I've never heard that.
Slowness to give love, right?
That's interesting.
So what they all do is they run around on the terrazzo. And they keep saying she went in haste, she went in haste, she went in haste. Because Mary, her ardent love always made her do everything in haste, no hesitation. Right? And so that's a beautiful image of what charity looks like. Is it always has haste to it. There's no real deliberation. Right? She just goes and does what needs to be done. Yeah. Because she loves.
And she went in haste to visit her cousin Elizabeth. So the interesting thing is I connect that immediately with St. John of the Cross. If you delay in something, you cease to rush towards the all. To go from the all to all, you must deny yourself of all in all. And it's from the Ascent of Mount Carmel. And it gets at the same concept, right? The continuous denial of self, which we talked about in a previous video, is for the sake of love, so that you move immediately towards what you are called to do. And you do not delay in what you're called to do.
But out of love, right? So love is the motor that moves you, which is it's not duty, it's love.
Well, and technically we know love moves all of our activities. Yeah. The question is, what do we love, and what is our love being pulled towards? Right. So and this is where, like I was getting on Twitter. See how much of my life
Twitter's back.
I won't have any Twitter stories in a couple of years because I'm not on Twitter as much anymore. We're on Twitter, but I don't. Tim doesn't allow me.
Unnamed social media app. Let's just call it from now on. We'll just call it unnamed social media app.
But it makes sense if you know it's Twitter, because Facebook and the rest of them aren't as cantankerous as Twitter. But anyways, I digress. So this guy was saying your dog doesn't love you. It's like, and I had to explain to him, no, according to Aquinas, your dog does love you, but he doesn't love you with a human love, right? And actually, according to Aquinas, the stars, gravity itself is a kind of love. And he wouldn't have understood the theory of gravity, but he saw the stars and the planets being moved by.
Yeah, love literally makes the world go round, right?
Exactly.
But that's so important because it's the sacramental understanding of gravity, right?
Yeah, exactly. So these attractions between things is love. And so the question is, well, what is ardent love? What is the divine love that the Blessed Virgin Mary received from God, and which we all receive as disciples? Is that we're drawn towards God. We're drawn towards the highest goods. And then we're drawn towards doing the good for our neighbor, and even doing the good for our enemy, right? I think maybe that's being drawn towards doing the good. When you start to understand, being drawn towards doing the good. So hypothetically, the Blessed Virgin Mary, like when Jesus was being crucified, she would have had negative emotions with the guards and with everybody who was mocking him. She wouldn't have felt good about that. She wouldn't have felt warm fuzzies about that. But if they turned around and asked her for a drink of water, or if she saw them in a ditch the next day and they needed help, her passions are so perfectly ordered, and her desiring of the good is so perfectly ordered, that she would not haste in helping the people that just moments before had tortured her son. Yeah. Right?
Yeah,
which is hard to grasp for us, right?
Totally.
Because we wouldn't do that.
The idea of her running to it, right? Running to it.
That's actually a good image to get at this sense of, like the Blessed Virgin.
Running to the good.
Yeah, and the Blessed Virgin Mary, take all the people that she just watched torture her son. Would she be able to forgive them, accept them, and do the good by them like that.
Yeah. Well, because she was their mother, right? Like,
yeah.
And she embraced that immediately, right? Like our Lord gives her to all mankind,
yeah.
and she embraces it immediately and runs to us.
Yeah.
Right? I think I've shared this story with you before, but it kind of captured just how that idea of her running towards even us, right? Like that's what she does. Like she goes towards her children too. I was in Mississippi 15 years ago after a hurricane, and I was helping to clean up, and my wife was pregnant at the time, and there was she called me on a Friday afternoon. I'm in the middle of Biloxi, Mississippi. There's a tiny little airport there, and she said, I'm bleeding. So she's 25 weeks pregnant, and she's like, there's a lot of blood. And I was like, okay, I'm coming home. And so I go back and I get my stuff, and there's no way for me to get home. Like I'd have to drive 10 hours. And so I'm kind of panicking. I'm like, what do I do? And so I go into, there's a chapel there with the Blessed Sacrament. And I go in there and I start praying the rosary. And I make the sign of the cross, and the whole room lights up. And I feel this thing behind me, this light pushing me towards the tabernacle. And I hear audibly, they're under my protection.
That's
and
awesome.
So I went from panic to just crying with relief.
Yeah.
And so I finished the rosary in thanksgiving instead of, in panic. And the minute that I make the sign of the cross at the end, my phone rings. It's my wife, and she says, everything's okay. They have no idea where the blood was coming from, but it stopped. That's awesome. So that immediate, like I go to her and she runs to me immediately.
That's awesome.
Right?
That's a great story.
Just a beautiful way of capturing like how she does that, how she like, and not every time, like,
obviously,
are you going to have experiences like that she knew what I needed, but she does it anyway. Like there's 1,000 other times in my life she has run to me immediately, and I didn't have that experience, but I knew it. I knew, and so that how much her love for Jesus causes her to run to his brothers and sisters, right?
That's an awesome image. Yeah. And then my thought is the times that I've delayed in something. Like, I
do that all the time.
Yeah.
I do
so
it all
I'll
the
give you
time.
an example of my own delay. One time I was in a summer assignment with Father Mears. I was in Rocky Mount, and it was my first year in seminary. And that summer I'd missed the whole World Cup for the first time in my life. Didn't get watch the World Cup at all. Father Mears is a little bit of a madman in this sense. He works a little too much, but we were constantly just moving from thing to thing. He kept me busy all the time. And it was Sunday, and I was all set to watch the finals of the World Cup. It would be the first game from the whole World Cup that I'd watch. Somebody comes up to me after Mass, and they say, they called me Father, I think, or they might just call me Ian, but normally they call seminarians Father because we're dressed in cassock.
Exactly.
I mean, I was dressed in a cassock because I was with him for the summer. And she said, my family member is dying. Can you and Father Mears come? And I was talking with Father Mears, and it was like, come by at the time when the game was going. And Father Mears was like, oh yeah, we'll go. I was like, well, Father Mears, I mean, I'm not a priest. Like, I don't have to go.
I'm only laughing because I'm putting Rob in that situation. Do I really need to be there?
So I know, exactly. So I was like, I really I don't have to go. I can watch the game. And his face was kind of falling like, oh, I can't believe you're saying that. And I walked away and I thought about it for a few minutes. I was like, oh, I gotta go. Yeah. But it's funny because, I mean, yeah, now I've trained myself. But what I do is I train myself now. If there's something I really want to do, for me, that's not sacramental or whatever, in my mind, I think to myself, somebody's going to interrupt this, just to prepare mentally so that, because it happens so often. You're like, oh, this is so great. I'm going to have the whole afternoon to myself. I'm going to have a whole free day. Yeah. And then,
or even just the way we deal with interruptions.
Yeah.
Right? I think you actually taught me this. I remember I called you at one time and you answered the phone immediately. And I was like, wow, you were sitting on it. You're like, no, I always answer the phone. I don't want people to think I'm too important or whatever. And it was like a dagger. I was like, oh, because I sometimes do that, right? And I realized, when someone calls, right, a lot of times I'll go, I don't really need to talk to them right now. And so I have to force myself now, okay, this is the present moment. Like God is putting this person in. So it's a simple thing, right? A simple thing. Just answer my phone. I'm really not that busy.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be as big as like going to accompany someone dying, right? And I found that actually that people are calling for something really, really important to them. Just I didn't think it was so important for me to answer, right?
Yeah. Unless it's me, because I'm not always talking about like important things, as Tim knows. But yeah, yeah, no, that's a great point. And that's like the part of perfect love. Well, not to say in every circumstance, all situations, but that willingness, because in a certain sense, that the hesitation or the interruption is somebody else imposing their need upon you.
Yeah, and the need against what I would rather be doing. And that to me, that's, that's where I need to grow. Like I need to be more attentive to the fact that my agenda, like, doesn't take precedence over, and you learn this as a parent, right? Like the best moments I've ever had as a parent are exactly when I've been interrupted.
Yeah.
And even in life, like most of the times when I'm interrupted, beautiful things end up happening.
Yeah.
And I've probably done it 100 times where I've missed.
Yeah, I'm finally understanding. I was not expecting this conversation. That line from St. John of the Cross, when you delay in something, you cease to rush towards the all.
Yeah.
To go from all to all, you must deny yourself of all in all. And those little interruptions. Because one of the one things, and I got to get better about this, and is so, like with my family, when I go home to Fayetteville, it's now becoming, like it's not a bad thing, but if my family wants a priest to do something that's important, they save it until like I'm visiting.
Yeah, and you just want to go there and be just Ian hanging out, right? Like you don't want to be Father Ian.
But I thought about that is, I thought about once, because I was preaching on the Bliss. I was actually, that morning, I was going home to visit my family, and I was joking around about how my mom always gives me work to do. And I was talking about the Blessed Virgin Mary and how, like, the Lord would never deny, like that's the wedding at Cana, right? This idea, the Blessed Virgin Mary gives him a job. He's like, I really don't feel like working right now. I mean, of course, it's different.
You're joking too.
I'm joking a little bit, but the idea is that the Blessed Virgin Mary, in a certain sense, I don't know if we'd say interrupted. Let's flesh out the language a little bit. Like, of course, Jesus has perfect knowledge. Father has perfect knowledge. They knew for all eternity that would happen. But in his human nature, it was kind of like his plan or what he had in, not what he had in mind, but what he was going to do was interrupt and change course.
Because he's trying to reveal he defers to her.
Yeah.
Like a good son, he defers to his mother, right? Like, I don't know, you have to flesh it out any differently than that, just to say a good son, which Jesus was the perfect son, defers to his mother.
Now you're making me feel guilty.
No, it's hello, like,
yeah, I don't defer
I'm a son too.
I don't defer to my mom. Well, to be fair, I would defer more to my mom perfectly if she was more like the Blessed. No, just kidding.
Wait, is your mom going to watch this?
I hope not.
Mom, you're great, just you're not Mary.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. She's like, son, you're great, but you're not Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, too funny. But yeah, but that's the idea of, see, that I've never thought of it, the interruption and went with haste to St. Elizabeth. And that's something to think about. What had Mary had planned before that she completely changed direction and like instantaneously, because it's made haste, instantaneously decided.
It happens to her like a lot, right? Like Joseph gets up in the middle of the night and says, let's go in Egypt. And she gets up and goes in haste, right? Like it's just, that's her way of responding, right? And no questions, though.
I got some new ones for my marriage prep now, because I have them meditate on some of these passages for marriage prep and the make haste thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, and I always liked as a husband to think about where St. Paul says, "Strive to outdo one another in charity."
Yeah,
and for me, like the competitive nature of Rob says, "Oh, that's actually really helpful." So I'm going to actually do it faster than she can do it.
Yeah,
right. Like I'm going to get up and get that before she can do it.
But that's fun, though. I mean, that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's a good, healthy competition, right?
That sounds, that's interesting.
Until I start knocking her over, or
exactly.
lower the shoulder or something.
Well, I think that's a good place to end our discussion. I was actually surprised. I wasn't sure where we were going to go with this one. This is a lot of fun. I learned something new. So so you were watching us talk about the ardent love of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Thanks, Rob.